Welcome back to English Otherwise. My name is Mr. James, your guide, your guru, your mentor, and so much more. And this is Breaking Down the News. This is a show in which I open my eyes in the morning. I crawl out of bed, I pour myself a couple cups of coffee, and I start highlighting the headlines. Then we jump in here, we pick them apart, we break them down so that way you can get a better understanding of what's going on in this weird, wild, and wacky world in which we live. But not only that, hopefully you get a few key takeaways, some pieces of language that you can put in your pocket to pull out later, better express yourself and impress others. Because there are odd grammatical constructions, there's often some pretty obscure vocabulary. And well, it's a great way to color your speech, make yourself sound a little bit more interesting, so that way people are more likely to listen to you. But not only that, you better be able to articulate that which you'd like to say. Alright, so good morning, mushrooms, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers, sisters, mothers, misters, and to all my cousins out there around the world, it's time to plug in. Let's get the train chugging. And yes, from bloodshed to uncertainty. Now, we don't know what's going on and what this story is about just yet. However, they certainly like to make some catchy headlines that'll catch your eye and your attention. Here, bloodshed. Now, you might know this. The shed, and I'm not talking about the small house in the back of your garden that is the destination for all of your tools, your shovels, your rakes, your hoes and brooms and clippers and trimmers and other home maintenance tools, I guess. No, we're talking about the verb here, to shed, but not in this case. But to shed something means to get rid of something, much like dogs shed their fur. Yes, it might be all over your sofa. Cats shed as well. That's why I'm allergic to them. But the dog's fur, they shed their fur, especially with the change of seasons. We're always shedding dead skin cells. Dandruff is a form of shedding. And, well, in this case, it's blood shedding. The blood is coming out. And so somebody is shedding other people's blood. And let's find out more in the caption below. These families crossed mountains to escape Myanmar's deadly junta. A junta is a form of government usually composed of a small group of military leaders. Yes, and as you know, the military has retaken control of the country and in effectively a coup d'etat, taking control away from the democratically elected government, who were a bunch of jerks in many respects, but at the same time they were democratically elected, and the military doesn't seem to be doing any better of a job. In fact, doing much worse, because they are hurting and killing protesters, imprisoning people, etc. And so families are fleeing Myanmar across the border, across mountains, into different countries to try and escape the violence and, well, seek a better life for themselves and their families. Let's learn more. Myanmar protesters have joined in a silent strike after soldiers killed a 7-year-old girl in her father's arms. Totes unacceptable, military junta. You are wrong. You need to cede control, step down, and restore the democratically elected government. A strike, to strike. We see it in many different languages and many different contexts. Now, we're not talking about lightning here. We're talking about a form of protest when workers stop working, or in this case, maybe people stop talking, or something along those lines as a form of protest. Typically, it'll shut down a company or some aspect of a nation's economy in order to give voice to the fact that the people who are in fact striking, the strikers, are against something that is happening in society or the company, etc. Moving on, more. Burmese policeman. A Burmese policeman in hiding. He's speaking, spilling the beans. He's letting the cat out of the bag and discussing what is going on. And apparently he had had enough. Burma, remember, is the former name of Myanmar. And Burma actually appeared on the crossword last night, interestingly enough. But a policeman from Burma who is in hiding has revealed the repression tactics. And he revealed it. He said, like, look, Ta-da! That's what we're doing, folks. So he's making it public. The repression tactics, the actions that are being taken to repress the people. And repression is usually different tactics, strategies to limit people's freedoms, push their backs up against the wall, unfortunately in this case, so they can be shot. Yes, it's to limit people's freedoms through various actions. Moving on, a 19-year-old becomes a martyr for democracy in Myanmar. And as you know, a martyr is somebody who sacrifices their life, that gives their life for a cause. In this case, it's for democracy. Often we see it for other sort of religious fanatics, typically. But in this case, the person looks to be some sort of hero, becomes a martyr, much like Jan Palach became a martyr for democracy in the Czech Republic, immolating himself back in the late 70s? Yeah, I think. Oh, forgive me. All right, moving on. Biden's heartfelt plea for gun control adds to his ambitious wish list. Ooh, yeah. Should have highlighted that. But a plea for something is a very strong emotional request, and especially regarding something that needs to be done now. It is something that is very pressing in its nature, and as you know, in the last 2 weeks we've had 2 mass shootings in the United States and countless other shooting incidents in other places as well around the United States. And so he's making a plea for gun control. And it is a heartfelt plea. It's not a heartwarming plea because, well, that's it's not a heartwarming situation when people are dying as a result of gun violence. But it's heartfelt. It's plucking at your heartstrings, much like you would with the guitar strings, we would say. And so, yeah, he's appealing to the emotions of the people in order to try and pass some more gun control. And that's 68. Thank you. Sorry about that, Zdenek. I had the 8 in my head, but I couldn't remember. Sorry. And if you're ambitious, you have very high goals that seem maybe unattainable. Like you might not be able to reach those goals. And a wish list is something, well, that you're wishing for, a list of things. And sadly, because Biden is super old, it might be kind of a bucket list. Oh, bad joke. All right, moving on. Witnesses detail how the Boulder shooting unfolded. That's right, a situation is like a piece of paper that's folded up, some origami, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen or what's going to happen next and what's going to be inside, what's around the next corner. And so as a situation unfolds, as a situation progresses, how the situation will play out, to use a few other synonyms that have appeared here in the headlines on past and recent shows. Yeah, awful. Moving on. Ex-Trump lawyer. I love this is her quote, and she's a bit of a lunatic if you ask me, but she says, reasonable people wouldn't believe my erection. Several people in the House of Representatives made the same mistake. Yes, election with an L, election fraud claims. Hello, Proxy King. Welcome to the show. Good morning to you if you're in this part of the world. Reasonable people wouldn't believe her election fraud claims. Yes, if you are reasonable, that means you are able to reason, and reason is logic. And so, yes, logical people who employ the logic of situations wouldn't believe her claims because, well, they are a bit far-fetched, they are a bit crazy, perhaps, and we'll actually see the verb to fetch down below as well, coincidentally. Moving on. North Korea conducts first weapons test of Biden's presidency. To conduct something, and I'm not talking about electricity through a copper wire, but to conduct is to plan or organize and then carry out or execute that plan or orders, to do them. So to carry out orders, to carry out a test, to perform a test, much like a conductor conducts the orchestra. He leads them and makes everything happen. So they have conducted their first weapons test of Biden's presidency, adding to the growing pile of challenges that Biden faces. Yes, yesterday we had a headline saying that his honeymoon period is over. Yes, the reality is sinking in. It's a difficult, difficult job in a difficult, difficult world. And so, best of luck, leaders. Leaders in the U.S. and leaders everywhere, really. Good luck. The world's got a ton of problems. Let's try and work together and solve them in a positive fashion for once. A CNN reporter recounts his or her vaccine trial experience. To recount something is just to recall, remember, and then retell. And so they're basically remembering and telling their vaccine trial experience. I don't know, was it good, was it bad? Ooh, clickbait, you're going to have to click the link to find out. Something tells me they probably got a needle stuck in their arm. Beyond that, I don't know. Moving on. Netanyahu's path to victory is far from certain. Yes, just like I am far from intelligent, I am far from cleanly shaven. It's just a nice phrase. We're not talking about physical distance, but if something is far from something else, logically, it's not even close to that. It's nowhere near that. And so, therefore, it's almost maybe even the opposite. And so, yes, we could say that his path to victory is uncertain. It's unclear. Moving on. This is atrocious. A white headmaster at a Catholic school told a black student to kneel and apologize the African way. I don't even know what that means, but fire that dude or lady. That's just inexcusable, and I don't even know what that means. However, I do know what it means to kneel. And to kneel is, well, right now I'm in a standing position. If I were, instead of to be resting upon my feet, but onto one of my, or both of my knees, yes, that is to kneel. Often people do it when they're proposing marriage, or if they are supplicating themselves before a person of authority, much like the Pope or a king or something, or dare I say a slave before a master, which is exactly what makes this so atrocious and offensive. All right, moving on. Some more positive news out there. An enormous container ship has run aground in the Suez Canal, causing an enormous traffic jam. And, these container ships, they're stacked super high, and apparently a gust of wind came in, pushed the ship off course, and it ran aground, into the ground. And so the ship is now stuck in the Suez Canal, and, well, there's not exactly a lot of space in there, so we've got an enormous traffic jam. Might slow some of the shipment of your weird injection-molded plastic goods from China. I don't know. But yeah, that's not good. It could cause further problems, and delays will probably reverberate throughout the entire shipping industry. All right, moving on. UN investigator says that a Saudi official issued a death threat against me, not me, but the UN investigator, over the Khashoggi probe. A probe is an investigation, and that's right. That was the New York Times reporter who was murdered in the Saudi embassy in Turkey. And then an investigation was being conducted, and apparently a Saudi official basically published a death threat against that person. And so they made a public call saying, bring me that person's head, and I will, give you a cheeseburger or something. I don't know. But that's really disturbing when you have officials making death threats in a public fashion. Yay. Moving on. The Department of Justice in the United States refers a former Capitol riot prosecutor for investigation. Blah, 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 blah. Former just means that the person is not working as that anymore. Just like you can say the former president, Bill Clinton. It's just a more formal way of saying X. Ta-da! Minds blown all around the globe. Moving on. A lawsuit calls Deshaun Watson a serial predator. 16 lawsuits against him now allege sexual assault. And actually, we had serial yesterday. I should have highlighted that. My bad. But if you're doing if something is serial, like Netflix, a series of things, and so bing, 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 one after another, multiple installations, or episodes, or sexual assaults, and a lawsuit. I don't know why we call it a lawsuit. I need to check the etymology on that, and I forgot to do that just before the show, but I don't have a lot of time early in the morning. Sorry about that, but yes, the charges have been filed against him, and sounds like a terrible dude. Moving on. Concerns or worries have been raised. Nice, reduced, present perfect passive there. By whom? By scientists, doctors, investigators, people. I don't know. The important thing is people are questioning the efficacy of the AstraZeneca vaccine data in an unusual statement by the review board. The review board. That's who's raising the concerns. They're worried about something. We're going to see some other concern down below. Moving on. See how the UK marked a year since the first lockdown? To mark something just means to make a little, oh dear Lord, Zdenyak's on it. Helper today. I'd give you some nice fancy visuals, but all I have is ominous thunder and lightning. Sorry. All of my other visuals are over in the crossword. I don't have them in this room. A lawsuit is etymologically sewn to suit, and the suit itself has a suite of diverse meanings in law, fashion, romance, and card playing. Well, yes. And so, wow. Meaning to sequere, meaning to follow. All right, wow. Interesting. And so we have, if something happens, then something follows after that. We could say to ensue. The ensuing problems cause blah, blah, blah. And so then etymologically follow the breadcrumbs. And yes, that would go back to sue somebody. And that could be related to the suit itself. All right. All right, that's a lot to unpack right there. We're going to keep it rolling with the show. I'm hungry and need some breakfast. Coffee alone isn't quite cutting it for me. All right, well, the point being, to mark a year, to commemorate a year. Now, we don't really want to commemorate a year, but to mark something, just to make a little mark up on the wall, yeah, we can do that. Why not? 3, 6, 5. There, that's how we've marked a year since the first lockdown. Aww, sad. All right, moving. Get rid of that. Come on, Mr. James. All right, moving on. What have I done? No, I switched tools. There we go. Banksy donated this painting. I don't know if you remember. That came out amidst the escalating COVID crisis. And he donated his painting to a hospital. And now the painting was sold at an auction, and it got $23 million. $23 million for the picture. Hopefully that money is poured into some treatment for the patients, not just going into the pockets of the doctors and never even the doctors, but the hospital administrators and other people like that. Let's put that money to good use, folks. And I'm sure that's what he had intended. Moving on. Now, here's some clickbaity sort of stuff. It has won it 5 times in a row. Can it win it a 6th? Just to make it unclear, let's just not fill in. Let's just use a neutral pronoun and object here, so that way people don't know what we're talking about, and hopefully they click the link and we can sell some more advertising. But the point being, in a row means one after another, consecutively, without pause, without break. Yes, just like the other day, I had 6 classes in a row without pause, back to back, one after another. Yes, 5 times in a row. Can it win at 6? I don't know. I wish it good luck. Actually, no, I don't. I always root for the underdog, and there's the favorite, and there's the underdog, the person who statistically will probably will not win. That's the person I always cheer for, and so I'm not rooting for, I'm not cheering for it. I'm rooting for the other guys, whatever, or other ladies. I don't know anything about this. Let's keep it moving. As I promised, more concerns, more worries over social media stars traveling as if traveling like, or more formally, traveling as if there's no pandemic. Yeah, well, people are traveling everywhere anyway. As long as we do it safely, it shouldn't really be a problem. However, if it's non-essential, I suggest limiting it. Stay at home. It's not just better for your own safety, but especially for that of others. Let's be a little bit more selfless as opposed to more selfish. Yes? Moving on. New reasons to think that the work from home revolution is overblown. Yes, the prefix over here means too much. And if it's overblown, it's overhyped. People are talking about it a little bit too much. People, oh, the world has changed. No one's ever going to come back. Nothing's going to be like the way that it was. This author is arguing that there's too much hype. There's too much talk, too much buzz, too much nya nya nya. And actually things probably, it's not fundamentally as different as people might say. You might still work from home, but really the game has not changed. You're still selling this, people are still buying that, etc. And ultimately the world hasn't changed that much. That's what I guess the author is implying. Moving on. The world's largest canvas painting fetches $62 million at a Dubai charity auction. There we go. Well done, Dubai. Auctioning things, and the proceeds, the money goes to charity to help people. Once again, often a lot of that money that's supposed to go to charity goes into somebody's pocket instead of helping the intended people. But hopefully this money goes into the good works that it's supposed to be going towards. Either way, to fetch means to get. It received $62 million at the auction. However, especially fetch implies go and get and bring back. It's the game you play with your dog when you throw a stick and you say fetch, and the dog goes and runs and gets it, brings it back to you, and you say, oh, good boy, who's your good boy? And you give him a treat or something like that. Speaking of which, I wish somebody would go fetch me some breakfast. I'm hungry. Moving on. Our survival, this is easy here. Our survival depends on, just a dependent preposition there. We depend on things. I know my Spanish students and speakers out there love to say it depends of. No, I know prepositions are tricky, but depends on. Oh yeah, and to treat something often with respect, or to treat something well, to treat something poorly. It just means to behave towards it in a particular manner. We're not talking about treating illnesses. That means dealing with, handling, and giving treatments to it to try and stop it and kill it. But in this case, we're not trying to stop and kill nature. Whew. Maybe talking a bit fast there. Caffeine, I can feel the caffeine go inside my brain. Moving on. Captivity saved these animals from extinction. That's right, zoos are not all bad, because sometimes these species might get just completely wiped out or wiped off the face of the earth, erased from existence, and become extinct. That's when there's no more left. Yes, and so to be held captive in captivity, in a way, sometimes it's a necessary evil. Unfortunately, that's the way the world works. We can do better, and we should, but sometimes the end justifies the means, eh? Yeah. Moving on. Ooh, free Pelotons and iPads. How Wall Street is fighting COVID burnout. That's right, just to burn out. There's nothing left, no energy left, like a candle that's been burning and keeps getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and suddenly there's nothing left and the flame goes out. It has burned itself out. Just like many of these workers on Wall Street doing these 95-hour weeks or whatever, they are burning themselves out. There's no energy left, nothing left to give, and once they're burned out, they're more than exhausted. They just suffer some sort of mental breakdowns or something like that, I guess. Supposedly iPads and stationary cycles are supposed to improve that situation and prevent people from burning out. Because yes, exercise does help, but if you're working 95-hour weeks, not much can be done for you. Burnout is inevitable. City launches Zoom-free Fridays. Not sugar-free, but Zoom-free, meaning no more Zoom, no video conferencing on Fridays to help avoid burnout. And so if you're launching something, you're starting a new policy, a new product, you're launching your new website and it's made public for the first time, apparently there's a catch. If you are wearing a sweater, or even here, I've got a pocket. Yeah, and sometimes when I'm not careful and I'm walking past a door, the door handle will catch my pocket and just about rip my sweatshirt off. And so if there's a catch, it's something that kind of grabs you. But when we say there's a catch, Zoom-free Fridays, but, and that little fine text, that little text at the bottom of the contract, but you have to work 100 hours between Monday and Thursday. Yeah? That's not possible. There's only 96 hours in between Monday and Thursday. But yes, there's a catch. There's some sort of thing. Yes, it's Zoom-free Fridays, but there's a catch. We're not using Zoom. We use Microsoft Teams on Friday. We use Skype for Business on Fridays. Yeah, what is the catch here? I don't know. I'm probably going to click the link. It's probably not that big a deal. And it's just the writers over at CNN trying to make a big deal and make things sound more interesting than they really are. But I'm curious. I like that kind of business, workplace policies and strategies, etc. I don't know. Moving on. GameStop earnings, how much money they have made, fall short of expectations. Yes, expectations were up here, and they're like, I'm going for the gold. Ah! And they fell short. They failed to reach or meet expectations. They certainly did not exceed expectations. They fell short. Even if they were just a little bit short, or they fell shy of, synonym in this case, yes, they were a bit shy of expectations. That even though they made earnings, it still erases the investor confidence and it causes stock to drop. That's something that always baffles me in a way, leaves me bewildered. That's another word from down below. But it confuses me. It's like, we made a ton of money. It was a little bit short of expectations, but we still made a ton of money. And so why is it having such an adverse effect on my stock price? And so that's just failed to reach or failed to meet expectations, yeah? Moving on. 7-Eleven is opening a taco drive-thru. Ah, yes, and this should be, as always, THROUGH, but McDonald's and the rest of them have ruined this preposition for the ages. But interestingly enough, McDonald's is not the first chain that ever opened a drive-thru. I double-checked this morning, and it was actually In-N-Out Burger, the famous burger restaurant, fast food with a very simple menu. I think there's like 5 items on their menu, also made famous in The Big Lebowski. They were the first, In-N-Out Burger was the first restaurant chain to open a drive-thru in 1948. There you go. A little odd piece of information to put in your pocket. Yeah, good point. Where's Sam from the taco truck when you need him? Well, and it's a truck. His truck could actually drive through. All right, moving on. Rare images by one of history's earliest photographers is up for sale. That means they are being sold. It doesn't say if it's going to be at auction or it's just a fixed price. The point being, they are for sale. They are up for sale. Why do we put in the up? Who knows? It's just to make it a bit more colorful, I guess. Maybe emphasizing the fact that they hadn't been before and it's a new development. I don't know. Just started thinking about it. But moving on. Cheeky. Yes, no. A cheeky medieval meme could be an example of 13th century humor. Ah, cheeky. And this is a weird one because we don't use it in North America. However, having lived in Europe long enough, I've grown accustomed to it. Cheeky actually means rude, but in a funny way. And not just rude in a funny way, but in a mischievous sort of way. Maybe things were being a little too serious and you're trying to lighten the mood a little bit, or maybe you're trying to disrupt class and make a joke. And so it's not rude in a lewd or like truly offensive nature, but maybe it's out of place or out of context, but it's funny. Yeah, it's actually a very nice adjective. Rude in a mischievous, like you're a little troublemaker in a funny fashion. An American Idol contestant fainted following their performance. To faint is to lose consciousness. Like that. It might because they were overwhelmed with emotion. Maybe they sang all of the oxygen out of their body, causing themselves to lose consciousness. And yes, or yeah, well, to feel faint or to faint is to lose consciousness, usually due to a lack of oxygen or blood flow to the brain. Moving on. Biden is botching his first crisis. That's such a nice word. To botch something, to mess something up, to screw something up, to something up, in descending levels of politeness there. Yeah, to make a debacle of something. Yeah, it was right there, and then you did a very poor job, and as a result, something's not working. I don't know what this first crisis is. Are they talking about the wave of immigration that is a wave or isn't a wave, depending on who you talk to and who you read? What could it be, folks? I don't know. So, let's move on. There we go, bewildered. An ex-NFL star who is now a congressman is bewildered, is befuddled, is flabbergasted, is flummoxed, is confused by January 6th insurrection, attempted coup d'etats, mob mentality. A mob is a group of people, often in part of a protest, or a protest escalated to turn violent. We're thinking the old days with like the pitchforks and torches, burn the witches! Yeah, and the mob mentality, collectively, people start to act together and it snowballs, and people just will go in the same direction as everybody else, and it's very very easy for things to escalate, and scientifically has been proven to be a thing, and people will perform acts or deeds that they would never have even contemplated on an ordinary day. But they just run with the group, and it builds momentum and things get a little bit out of hand. But I think a lot of those people actually planned what happened there. But bewildered, befuddled. Bewildered. And it's not bewildered. Bewild! That would be fun though. Bewildered. To be bewildered, to be befuddled, to be flummoxed, to be flabbergasted, to be confused, basically. We got lots of fun, relatively uncommon words for confused. But it's like, if you're bewildered, you're saying, I don't have an idea what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know. Why do we have such a diverse group of words for that? I don't know. Because often when we are confused, then somehow we're able to locate obscure vocabulary to articulate our lack of ability to understand something. That's kind of meta. Whatever. Moving on. Microaggressions. Now these are usually like speech acts or something, but these microaggressions weigh heavily on climbers' shoulders. To weigh heavy, responsibility weighs heavy on the president. Yeah, it's very metaphoric. However, we're talking about climbers, and they're always doing this, and so I think they're actually using a sort of metaphoric or figurative. They're using something that's usually used in a figurative fashion in a very literal sense about how these microaggressions, like little falls or something, cause damage to climbers' shoulders. But yes, to wait, man, I've got that big report coming up at the end of the month because it's the end of the quarter, and it's weighing heavy on me. And if something is resting on your shoulders, that means it's your responsibility. Yeah, just like Atlas and then Hercules, yes, took the weight of the world on their shoulders, resting on their shoulders. All right. Gosh, we got into Hercules and then the feats, the Nemean, the slaying of the Nemean lion in the crossword last night. Whatever. Moving on. Remember, Mr. James, you're hungry. Eyes on the prize. Let's get through this. Madison Cawthorn, this guy's a serious D-bag and just a jerk. He falsely claimed, I just love adverbs, and so he falsely claimed there's $0 spent on homeless veterans. It's actually more than $2 billion a year. Remember, the suffix less means without. People who are homeless are without a home. Ta-da! Yes, and that was a rather careless explanation, but that's a result of my generally carefree lifestyle. Whatever. Moving on. Pentagon says it has received Health and Human Services request to house migrant children at 2 bases. Probably military bases. And it's just interesting because a house, usually used as a noun, a building in which people live. Usually a freestanding, standalone structure, or it could be row houses or a semi-detached house, much like ours, where we share one wall with the neighbors next door. But as a verb here, to house people means to give them accommodation, to colloquially put them up for, man, they're painting my house and the whole place smells terrible. Could you put me up on your couch for a couple nights? Yeah, can I stay over at yours? Thanks, appreciate it. Manchin opposes the House gun safety bill, underscoring the Democratic divide over gun control. Yes, there is division. There is a divide, a rift within the Democratic Party over the issue of gun control. People are for, other people are against. And so the fact that Manchin opposes the House gun safety bills is underscoring. Here, the pink is highlighting, and I use that to emphasize or draw your attention to words that are interesting, important, etc. But to underscore is basically the synonym for underline, which I'm about to do for you right now. Let's see, pick a color. Let's go with blue. All right, and so underscoring the Democratic divide. Yes, put a couple lines under there. Underscoring the importance of screen time and kids. Yes, underscore means underline, but it means to highlight or emphasize or really make the point stronger. Yeah? All right, great. Moving on. There is little research to back reports of Northern Lights sounds, blah, 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 to support people's reports of the Northern Lights making sounds. Northern Lights don't make sounds. It's electromagnetic disturbances in the atmosphere, blah, 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 blah. But the point being, there's little research. Notice there's not a little research. All right, and so that by using just the little here without if you said there's a little research, it means there's some research. But here, without the indefinite article, without it means very little, hardly any, almost none, yeah? Just like the other day, I went down to the beach, and there were very few people there, yeah? Or you could be like, oh man, I was at the park, and there were a few people there, meaning some. But when we do it without the indefinite article there, then it means almost none, especially a surprisingly small amount. All right, that's it. Moving on. Getting closer to the end. I can see it just down below. Science and allergy relief in a spring clean. Yes, I have allergies. That's why I highlighted it. But yes, if you have allergies, then you suffer the symptoms, and often we take antihistamines to relieve us of the symptoms of that illness. And so, yes, a spring clean can help give you relief or relieve you of your allergies. That's all. Moving on. How the pandemic has changed our sense of mortality. Yes, most of us, myself included, are mortal. We are not immortal. We will not live forever. We all will eventually die someday. Hopefully later than sooner, but that's yet to be determined, especially with COVID out floating around. Mortality is just the fact that you are not immortal and you will someday die. And so the pandemic has changed our sense of mortality. Some people throwing caution to the wind and acting carelessly, saying, screw it, I don't care, come what may. And other people really protecting themselves, maybe even for the first time, really looking after their own personal health in order to prevent themselves from dying. Because lots of times the threats that we face to our own mortality are unclear, or they seem like they're far down the road. They're a bit ambiguous, nebulous, vague, faint on the horizon. But this has provided us with a very clear threat that could kill us at any moment, more or less. And so, yes, it probably has changed our perception thereof. Moving on. A social media star steps down from his buzzy new application. That's not busy, that's buzzy. There is a lot of buzz, a lot of people talking, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I don't know which one this is, and I'm guessing probably Clubhouse, but there has been a lot of buzz, a lot of chatter, a lot of people talking about, the new kid on the block, Clubhouse, it's amazing discussions, blah, 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 blah. And so it's really buzzy. It has created a stir, a buzz, much like a beehive is full of bees, and they're all bees are always busy working. Buzz, 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 buzz. Yeah, all right, that's it. And the social media star has stepped down, has resigned, or maybe not resigned, but at least has stepped down off of the throne or from their position of power, ceding control. That's to cede, C-E-D-E, to cede control to someone else. Maybe identifying the fact that, hey, I'm just a social media star. I'm not a business expert. That's better left to the experts and the business people. I don't know. To step down from the throne, the position of power, the presidency, the CEO, blah, blah, blah. To resign, to step down, to quit, to walk away, to give up your position. Moving on. Tim Cook will testify against Epic in the Fortnite trial, and the Fortnite trial will be epic. It'll be an epic trial of Fortnite. Whatever. I'm just... whatever. To testify is to give your official account. You're giving your testimony when you are testifying, often in court or before a group of official people, maybe senators or something like that. Yeah, you're giving your official true account of what happened. And so he's going to try and take them down in support of them, I guess. Moving on, there's a mission to clean up space junk with magnets. Logical. But the point being here, to clean up, meaning to remove it. We're not cleaning the space junk. We're not like, we're not going to clean it. We're going to clean it up because space is a mess and we need to tidy up our orbit because all those little bits and bobs of former satellites and current satellites that are non-functional, they can do damage to the other ones that we want to put up there. And believe it or not, it's really, really crowded up there. And so yes, we need to clean it up. Magnets seems like a great way to do things. Moving on. Ending it with a nice phrase we've had on the show before, and even the same headline recently, but there's different viewers each time. So Google is doubling down on office space despite the rise in remote work. So we've got remote work. All signs point to don't need the office, but Google says no more office. And so they're doubling down. They're putting more energy or efforts into some sort of action that would appear risky. Well, because all the trend says that. And this actually comes from blackjack. If you turn over your cards and you've got two of the same thing, then you can then double your bet and double your chances. However, also doubling your risk. And so, yes, to double down on something is to increase your efforts in a particular direction, especially one that seems to be risky, because all information points the other way. All right. So that was it. Those were the headlines for today. Welcome to today. Today is Wednesday, the 24th of March. I hope you have a beautiful day or sweet dreams if you're on the other side of the planet. Take it easy. I'll be on at 8 o'clock tonight with another crossword. And then, yeah, no more news this week because I got morning classes. And so, yeah, that's it for me for the news this week, unless I do some funky evening news on Friday before the crossword. But 8 p.m. tonight for the crossword, 8 p.m. on Friday for the crossword, and that's it. Have a great day. Much love. Eat well. Stay safe. Wear your mask. Bye-bye. Yes, stop the stream. It's breakfast time.